Hey there, welcome back to our Rev Games Academy. In our previous video, we've learned about implementing voiceovers in Unity games. Today, we're going to dive into how you can manage volume and mute functionality in your Unity game, focusing on the key concepts and best practices to ensure smooth and player-friendly sound control. In Unity, sound is primarily managed through the audio source component, which is responsible for playing audio clips in your game. If you want to control the volume of a specific sound, you can adjust the audio source .volume property. This is a value that ranges from 0, which represents complete silence, to 1, which is full volume. This control allows you to fine-tune the sound levels and give players more flexibility. This is manual control during runtime. Let's consider a scenario where you want to adjust the volume of a sound dynamically while the game is running. Before we begin, ensure that your scene and game is properly set up. If you need guidance, please refer to our previous tutorials. Also ensure that your audio clip is assigned to the audio source component to ensure it plays correctly during runtime. For controlling the volume dynamically, we have to create a script and name it something like Volume Controller. Now, let us create references for the key components needed to control the volume and mute functionality. First, we have the volume slider. This is the UI slider component that the user interacts with to adjust the volume level. Next, we have the audio source. This is the audio source component responsible for playing the sound in the game. We'll use this reference to adjust the audio volume based on the player's input from the volume slider. We also need two sprites, the sound on sprite and the sound off sprite. Also, there's the sound button toggle image reference. This is the image component attached to the button that toggles between mute and unmute. Lastly, there is a Boolean variable isMuted, which tracks whether the audio is muted or unmuted. It is initially set to false to ensure that the audio starts in an unmuted state by default when the game begins. These references form the foundation for controlling the sound dynamically, toggling the mute functionality, and ensuring the UI updates accordingly. In the start method, we first set the initial value of the volume slider to match the current volume of the audio source. This ensures that the slider reflects the correct volume when the game starts. Next, we add a listener to the volume slider that triggers the update volume method every time the slider's value changes. This ensures that as the user adjusts the slider, the audio volume will dynamically update. The update sound icon of audio source.volume method updates the sound icon based on the volume level, ensuring the visual reflects whether the sound is on or muted. Now, let us define the update volume of float value method. The volume of the audio source is updated based on the value passed from the volume slider. However, before changing the volume, we check if the sound is muted using the isMuted flag. If the sound is not muted, we update the volume of the audio source to the value from the slider. After updating the volume, we call update sound icon of audio source.volume to ensure the sound icon reflects the current volume state. The toggle sound method handles the mute and unmute functionality. Every time the user clicks the mute button, the isMuted flag is toggled. If the sound is muted, the audio source.volume is set to 0, effectively muting the sound. If the sound is unmuted, the volume is restored to the value set by the slider. After changing the mute state, we call update sound icon of audio source.volume to update the sound icon, showing whether the sound is on or off. Lastly, the update sound icon of float volume method updates the visual icon based on the current volume level. If the volume is 0, the icon is switched to the sound off sprite, representing the muted state. If the volume is greater than 0, the sound on sprite is used, indicating that the sound is active. Once the script is completed, save it and return back to Unity. Next, create a game object named Volume Manager and attach the volume controller script to this game object. After this, assign the reference variables from the hierarchy window, including the volume slider, the audio source from which the audio is playing, the image component of the sound button, and the sprites for the sound toggle. By adding a sound toggle button to the UI, players can easily mute or unmute the game's audio with a simple click. The button is linked to the volume manager, which controls the volume through the volume controller script. When pressed, the button triggers the toggle sound function, switching between mute and unmute states. Once the button click functionalities are assigned and the reference is set up, click the play button to test the entire setup. As we adjust the volume slider, you'll notice the change is reflected in the inspector window as well. And that's it. Through scripting, we've dynamically controlled the volume and mute functionality. If you found this guide helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more Unity tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.